it's got a small printed book on it of the Old Man and the Sea. Uses some of the little snakehead rods as like little, greebling accents. And it uses one of the old, like 2017 superhero super jumpers. If you don't know what those are, they were these little clear pieces that were like C-shaped and flat, and you would, press on the top part of the C. You would put your minifigure and then you press on the top part of the C, which was right below the legs, and you need to press it and then let it go, and it would like jump the minifigure up in the air. And they were notorious for one reason, and that's because they were designed poorly, and if you used it, it would break the minifigure's legs. It would crack them. They actually used that as a stand for the book, recolored. I don't think Lego would come out. I think that would be a piece that they would change, but I just wanted, just something I noticed I wanted to
Yeah.
call out.
So a deep cut in the nice part usage category, huh?
The FBI is going to come crashing in this builder's house for using that illegal technique because I think that piece is like super banned.
Yeah.
Or if there's a banned piece list, it would be on it. Hello, bricks, chicks, and minifigures. You are listening to AFOLs Welcome, where we talk about all things LEGO from the perspective of two adult collectors. We're your co-host. I'm Grinch.
And I'm West.
And today we are doing our first stage review of 2025 for LEGO Ideas pitch meeting. But before we get into that, West, how was your week? Did you build anything fun?
Well, Grinch, I have 2 weeks really to catch up with because of our travel last week, and the week prior, I was starting the travel, and so we recorded the episode early. So I'll be very brief with this. My week in Lego, or weeks in this case, has been pretty good. As I posted in the What I'm Building Wednesdays, I was working on the Ayrton Senna F1 car, and I actually have it right next to me. And my quick review, and I posted this on Instagram for anyone who wants to see it, is that I think the critique or criticism about the printing on it, on the white printing on the red nose piece, is very valid. It comes across as pink, and it really struggles to show through. Most notably, I think this was also an issue on that Coruscant gunship from Star Wars last year, where those clone troopers, those shock troopers, had really bad white on red printing. This, I think, is just a classic example of where maybe Lego needs to invest in just going through a one more pass. You know, if you were painting a red room white, you wouldn't just paint on one layer of white paint and call that good. So I don't know why that seems to be a problem still, or that definitely seems like a poor quality control piece, especially with the way. And I will throw some credit to those who comment or criticize in this capacity, but on the box, the images, they show it looking
Pristine.
nice. So I think that's a bit of a bummer. This week I was gone and away, but like I try to do when I go on a business trip for an extended or over a week or so, I try to go and see if I can pick up like a little Lego to go and build, just to kind of keep things interesting. And I picked up a Technic set, and I have not bought Technic in a long time. Yeah.
Let's get technical.
Exactly. I bought the bush plane set, and I've seen reviews on it. It was really fun. It was a really fun build. There's a little push feature on the side that spins the propeller, which is kind of neat. And then it has some relatively realistic control surfaces, which is pretty cool to see on a build like that. Although I'd love to make them more realistic with a little modification on my end. So we'll see. Maybe stay tuned for some posts about that on Instagram or Bricked. But that was my weeks in Lego. Grinch, how about you?
It's funny you mentioned the printing, because I was thinking about Lego sets while I was driving earlier today, as I commonly do. And it's funny that like the kid sets come with prints because clearly like nobody likes stickers. So like why do the adult sets not come with like if the entry point is like, hey, we know you hate stickers and like kids shouldn't use them, why is like the super high premium sets for adults stickered? It was just
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't know, kind of backwards. I didn't have a huge building week. I was mostly focused on getting my collection tour video completed. I ran into a couple technical difficulties with it, so it'll be out Thursday. Have my word on that. And I was actually this week putting together just a couple random gift with purchases that were in the backlog that I wanted to get done for that specifically. As a sidebar, sorry about my mic this week. It's not my typical crispy, nice Logitech mic. It's broken, so fun. But we move on. And
Let's do it.
speaking of moving on, let's move on to some exciting LEGO news.
Exciting LEGO news.
West, hit us. What was so
All right.
exciting?
Well, this week we had some really cool reveals. So we got the Lego Icons shuttle carrier aircraft officially announced and revealed
You
via
probably hate
Lego.
that set, huh?
We'll talk about that. Lego Masters Season 5 contestants were revealed, and we have a release date for Season 5, which is very exciting. And then Bricklink Designer Program Series 8 fan vote goes live May 16th and 18th. And Grinch, I'm going to throw a few on here that are off the cuff. We also got the Luxo lamp, was the Pixar lamp. The junior lamp was officially revealed, which was really cool to see as well. And so, yeah, that's kind of the big news this week in Lego. Grinch, what stands out for you?
Well, we also had 54 ideas projects. We'll get to that later. Um,
57, if I'm not mistaken.
The shuttle carrier aircraft. I think you'll talk plenty about that. I am excited for Lego Masters Season 5. And then, Bricklink Designer Program is, I got to go check out some of those sets, but the voting isn't live quite yet.
Yeah. Well, before we talk about the SCA, I do want to mention, I think last week you talked about some of the set reveals that came out for the summer wave. And one in particular I wanted to call out, which was the Lego train station for the city this year. I actually thought that looked really, really good.
I love it.
That's one, I think the technique that really stood out to me on it was the use of the quarter Technic gear piece, the large gear piece that's used.
The banana gear is what it's called.
Yeah. What a great piece. And then they use garage doors on the inside of it to create that curved window on a train station. And that's something that is not necessarily new. I think it's even used in the Ninjago workshops for one of the garage doors, if I'm not mistaken, or something very similar. But it looks incredibly good. And it's something that's often emulated by designers. And I'm going to be a little critical here. I don't think they do it as well. And so I think Lego actually was able to do it better on the city model using a very simple technique. I've seen people use like train track pieces to create the curved windows, literally building the train tracks, putting them sideways and putting clear panels in between them. And I think it looks okay, but I think they really nailed it with this. And I think that one will be really fun. And if there's ever a set where you could probably combine 2 or 3 of them to turn them into a properly sized train station, I think this is definitely one of them. But
yeah, and this thing just screams adding like 3 together, and I think they designed it that way too. It just also like I felt like it was priced fairly decently.
Yeah, and
Like it
sometimes
wasn't.
that last one too was like a very modern train station that they made, and I think it looked good. I saw some people build some creative, customizations with them where they did just that, like, added 2 of them together, kind of built out the train platform a little more. But this one just really feels kind of old world a little bit, and is I think definitely what the community is like after when they think of a train station. So, anyways, why don't we
The
talk about
shuttle.
the SCA? So this one is actually, I think, really exciting, Grinch, and I'll tell you why. It's a throwback, and our friend of the channel, Fear and Bricks, did a review on it or a video on it just now, and he has the new SCA next to the old set that came out in the early 90s, and we actually had that set. This was one of the first
Mm-hmm.
Lego sets that I ever remember. I think one of the first ones I ever remember us having was a tow truck, but this shuttle carrying aircraft from the 90s was definitely one of them. And it was a fun set, but definitely I think highlights the limitation of Lego in the 90s, which all of the aircraft were built at a 4 wide scale. And there wasn't like a lot of attention to detail with respect to it being modeled after a 747, for example. So it's it has 4 engines. That was about as close as they got. But this thing just looks really great. I think I was curious how they were going to capture the scale or the nose of the aircraft at that scale. And I think they did a really great job with the 747. And I think it looks maybe a little more angular in the set. But actually, if you look at those aircraft in real life, they
Mm-hmm.
kind of have that look. So I actually think they nailed it. I think this is really fun because I think you could take it and recolor it and turn it into a Northwest Airlines 747. You could turn it into a Delta Airlines. Like I think there's kind of a sky's the limit, pun intended, here on some fun recolors and possibilities and modifications that can be made to it. And then we got a really great version of the space shuttle at this scale, and specifically they did the space shuttle Atlantis, and um, I believe the Atlantis, if I'm not mistaken, was a mock-up. It's not actually a space shuttle that went into space. I might be mistaken. I know there is a mock-up, and it's the one I believe they put on this model. It was the one that was originally in the Udvar Hazy Air and Space Museum
Mm-hmm.
outside of Washington, D.C., that then got replaced with the Discovery when the shuttles were retired. So very exciting to see all of that together. I think it adds to the portfolio of really cool aircraft that Lego now has, including the Concorde. I don't know what other, you know, it's a really great, I don't know. I'm really excited. Obviously I'm fanboying over this thing pretty hard. So that's going to be probably a day one purchase for me. I believe it releases on the May 18th. So
Mm-hmm.
very excited to see that.
Yeah, I think my only criticism was with the nose of
Yeah.
the it was a 777, 747. I just
747.
just wanted to see what that looked like in person. So I'll be curious to hear your take on how that looks, you know, outside of a photographic or video medium, right? Because stuff can look so different in person, but overall very pretty. One I will enjoy from a distance. Definitely one too that I feel like maybe last year would have been $200, but it still feels like a good deal in my opinion. It still feels like there's a lot there. So I don't have much to say. I think you covered it all. So with that, let's wrap up this news section a little earlier than normal and head over to the main topic.
Today's topic.
We are doing our pitch review. We did this with the last stage. I think it went over very well. We have the first review stage of 2025. We have a total of 54 LEGO idea sets to review. I'm sorry, 57. West, you did correct me on that earlier. Um, and part of the reason we're doing this pitch meeting is because if we went through all 57 in the detail that we like to go through things, we'd be here for a 4-hour marathon. Um, so rather than doing that, we're going to just kind of talk about the total stage as a whole, this round one, this first review, and then we're going to go, West and I will alternate picking sets that we like. We're going to each pick 3 sets, and then we'll pick a final set that we are going to place a bet on, And the way that the bet works is if West gets it right, if he calls it out, and I said, the order of words is very carefully chosen there. I said West first because I believe he's gotten our last two correct. So Lego's expensive. It's even more expensive when you have to buy it for somebody else. No, I'm just kidding. We have fun with our bets. So the winner, whoever gets it correct, will get the set purchase from the other person. So before we do that, though, big congratulations goes out to all of the builders that reached the 10,000 votes. If we do not highlight your set, that does not mean we don't like it. It just means one spoke to us more. Our least favorite set is still on our list of favorite sets, and we've got 57 favorite Lego idea sets here in this review stage. So, West, with that all out of the way, what is your thoughts on this stage?
Well, first, I need to clarify something. When we were talking about the SCA, I said the Atlantis. The Atlantis was an actual shuttle. The shuttle mock-up was the Enterprise, and that is the one, named after the famous Star Trek vessel. Also, there's an aircraft carrier called the Enterprise that is always in the Navy's fleet. It's been renamed over and over again. But anyways,
I was going to correct you on that, Wes, but I just
thank you for allowing me to correct myself first.
Just taking the high road over here. Yeah.
Interesting enough, it could not go into space. It was never designed to. It was always just designed to make sure everything fit correctly and do some aerodynamic testing. So that all aside, and some really, awesome NASA nerddom out of the way, let's talk about the ideas, the question you actually gave me. Opening thoughts. 57 sets, right? The ideas waves continue to increase. I don't recall how many were in the third round of 2024, but I remember, I believe it was the first one. And the first time we did one of these idea reviews, there was like 30 of them. And so now
I think it was 38. And then the next time it was like 51, and like the 38 took us 2.5 hours.
It's a lot.
We played bricked or skipped.
Yeah. It's a fun. I mean, it's always a fun series to see everything that pops onto this review, and we'll talk about this with the data. But Lego does a little bit of quality control with respect to sort of their own corporate requirements right off the bat, right? And then it goes into eligible, right? So hey, as long as it passes their initial review, and then it has to get the 10,000 votes, and that's really the only thing that is there as a control to then meet this review stage. So it's interesting to see what has popped up, and we're going to chat on some kind of interesting conundrums here later. But it looks like a really great review wave, and I think the data that we're going to talk about really kind of hits on some of the thoughts and stuff that I wanted to address. So, Grinch, what about you? What did you think of what are your opening, thoughts on this review stage?
This one was interesting to me because it felt like half of it was, and I know we'll get to the data, so I'll keep this brief. Half of it was kind of some of our mainstays. Like, I wasn't surprised to see some of these, and it kind of, those sort of sets always have me like, huh. And then the other half was the exact opposite, to the point where I was like, huh, would they make that? So it was kind of, it's a little bit more of a memorable wave for me, I think, but there's not one that really screams at me, So yeah. Wes, why don't you, we've teased the data, why don't you just get right into it?
Yeah, so we talked about the fact that there's 57 sets. By our own estimation, 37 of them are based off of IP, which means that there's only 20 of them that are sort of organically or, based off of something outside of IP. There's lots of TV shows in this wave. So many TV shows that we didn't necessarily write down every single one, but some notable ones that we haven't seen in a while. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air stands out as something that was interesting. I'm sure Golden Girls has been covered before, but that one kind of stood out. We have a How I Met Your Mother set, right? There's a Brooklyn Nine-Nine set. Those are Brooklyn Nine-Nine has been a mainstay in the Lego Ideas contest. So we're seeing a lot of those sets kind of over and over again. Some of the other, like you mentioned, there's kind of the regulars, if you will, to the Lego Ideas
We
review
talked about
stage.
the meta game of Lego Ideas, right? And how there's kind of like the mainstays. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we have some Taylor Swift sets, right? We've got our Appa. We have to have an Appa in a Lego review
I
stage.
mean,
We have some sort of set tributed to Studio Ghibli. We've got a Bob Ross set, and then this was kind of an interesting point that you brought up, which is that there are two versions of the National Lampoon's Christmas set. Both of the house,
pretty identical too.
right, completely identical. Which is interesting because it was just added to the approved IP list, which means that these sets were now able to pass the initial Lego quality control, screening process, and they both made it into the review stage, which is interesting because I'm curious what the crossover is of how many people voted for one but not the other, or did just everyone who voted for one vote for the other one, right? Hoping that would make it twice as likely.
We really want these.
Yeah.
Which, as we've talked about, we feel like it's kind of a death sentence, right?
Right. I mean, who gets the credit for it, right? I think that's one of the weird things we mentioned is like if Lego were to select the National Lampoon set, I think they would have to technically credit both builders and either, I suppose, have them share the percentage that either one of them would have gotten or both give them the same. It's a pretty small percentage. It's something like 2% of sales or so it's a relatively small figure, but I don't know. I think that would be really interesting to see in the long run. Maybe even then, I'm sort of secretly hoping that set is the one that gets selected only for us to see how that would work to some extent. But for no other reason.
They wouldn't give us like all of that information, I don't think.
No, you would need somebody on the inside kind of commenting on it or Lego commenting on it for the first time just to clarify or something, or maybe a little scandal to just kind of shake that loose. But I don't know, Grinch, what did you kind of think about that data? What stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, we got T-Swizzle, we got Appa, we got the whole gang, the whole Lego Ideas gang. I want to make a poster that just says Lego Ideas, and it's just like a bunch of Appas.
It would be interesting, and maybe that's a bit of a research project for us or potentially a listener too, to go back and look at every review stage and see how many of like, not necessarily how many times like a individual Taylor Swift set is, but like when was the last review stage where we didn't have a Taylor Swift set? How many Appas have we gotten in total over the last 5 years of Lego Ideas?
And will we ever get one? If you can answer that,
one could hope. So,
well, do you want to? West, one that did stick out to me is there's a plane on here, so
there is.
I'm curious to know if that's where does the reason and the fan want come into play here with your choices. So why don't you get into your first set selection?
Okay, let's do that. So I, interestingly enough, did not pick that aircraft for any of my three. I do. You introduced it, so I will talk about it at the end here if I remember. It's been a long week, so
talk about it now. Talk about it now while you're thinking about it.
It's a cool airplane. The company that is referenced there, the Noliner company, is a Canadian cargo carrier, and that 737-200 is what's called a combi aircraft, and it's combi because it's both a cargo and passenger aircraft. And so the cargo compartment is up front, in front of the wings, and the passenger section is in the back.
So there's less windows up there.
Yep, and it's all done for weight and balance purposes.
Yeah, it's that easy.
So
sign me up. Give me a plane.
They're really specialized airplanes. They don't necessarily make them like this anymore. Alaska flew a few of them too for a while. And then this one specifically is what we in the business call a small motor aircraft. And so it has the older engines on it. And they do that specifically actually because these aircraft fly mining equipment and miners up into the great north of Alaska, into the northern territories. And so they have to land on snow and gravel and mud. And he even mentions it in his review, but he included the gravel kit. And it's a little probe that sticks out of the bottom of the engine and uses air from the engine to actually help keep gravel away from the inlet. And so it like blasts air and it helps force the gravel away. These airplanes have been flying for like decades now. I'm sure they're well maintained. They'd have to be in order to stay flying. It's like a really nerdy deep cut for aviation. And so, I mean, I think it's really, really cool. I don't know if Lego necessarily agrees with me. So I'd be surprised. And with the Icons line already covering aircraft, I didn't think that was maybe a realistic pick.
And for that reason, you were chopped.
Yeah. We had to say
get the Food Network.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
all right.
Let's get right
Thanks
into it.
Thanks for nerding out. Let's get back into it.
Thank you for letting me indulge in some aviation nerddom. I'm actually upset because we picked the same one for the first one. So I'm moving on to number 2. Grinch, I'll let you talk about your first one, and I will throw in my commentary there. The first one I'm going to pick tonight, Grinch, is the Table of Elements.
Interesting.
So I actually saw this set, or my pitch for this one is we've seen a Lego periodic table of elements showing Lego colors, but that is not what this is. This is actually just the periodic table of elements in Lego form. And so the colors there are color coded on how the actual periodic table of elements is color coded. It has nothing to do with Lego colors. And I actually think this is a really awesome thing for Lego to dive into. We've seen Lego lean into things like NASA before. We've seen Lego lean into things like animal science and earth science before with some of their explorer themes, right? But we've never really seen Lego dive into chemistry. And what a meta, conversation this is when we talk about Lego and chemistry. Because as the author or the creator of the set noted, these elements are in all elements of the earth and in Lego itself. And so I just think that's like a really great way. You're showing the building blocks of everything we know made out of Lego building blocks. I think there's something a little poetic about that. So it really leans into, the STEM idea. There's no IP here, right? And
I didn't count it as one, but I was going to bring that up because there is a minifigure of Dmitry Mendeleev.
Yes.
And I don't know how that works with people. Because
fair enough.
If you try to get like an athlete, that is a license, but he is,
I think, old enough.
150 years old. So yeah, I'd be curious because was the Galileo set a IP? I don't know. So I did not count it, but it's one of those kind of like asterisks, more information needed.
Are there descendants of Galileo who still are like, we are the Galileo, the keepers of the Galileo Foundation and the,
They're the Knights of Galileo, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I just think this one's really fun. So that's kind of the end of my pitch there. It's not a very strong pitch, I'll admit. But I think it's a goofy one, but I think it's kind of up the Lego ideas line of thinking here.
The one thing I think it's got going for it is it uses the Lego art backs, the little Lego art, what we called with Fear and the base plates, the kind of art bricks. It uses that for the backbone. Maybe it's the chemical backbone. It's a carbon backbone.
The puns write themselves.
But here's the one thing I think that could set this over the edge. I don't know how many pieces this had. It uses a lot of tiny tiles, it looks like.
Yeah.
But what if you had
specialized printed? Every one of those elements.
Everything's printed.
So
and if everything's a sticker, huge. That would be terrible. The one thing I think would be really cool, and again, I don't know the piece count, but could maybe help it, would be if you had a buildable chemical atom that you could do
that would be good.
with protons, neutrons, and then electrons, right? And if you could be oh, build that, you could be like, oh, build this, because they do point out, what all, how to read the element chart, right? The atomic numbers in the top left, what the symbol is, element name, the density, all that. So it'd be cool to be like, actually give you instructions
Yeah.
and be more of a STEM focus set versus a kind of celebration or just a mock of a periodic table, be a little bit more of a hands-on learning experience. But
This almost would feel, I think, maybe more at home, and I think this is the direction you're going, like in a Lego education like thing.
yeah,
Almost like the
yeah,
Braille bricks, a little bit of like very specialized, very niche, but also yeah. So I will take that as a fair point. I just thought that was a fun one, so that one stood
yeah.
out to me. Grinch, how about you? What's your first one?
Well, I'll be damned, because this was your first one, but I get it this time because you stole mine last time. So
I'm giving this one to you. Yeah, I'm
I
ceding the floor.
chose, and there was two, and I chose this one specifically. I chose the Roman temple. Now, the other one that we got was the Roman Thermae. I
Hmm.
hope I said that right. The
Well,
Roman
I don't know
bathhouse.
about that, but
Yeah, probably not. Let's be honest. But I chose the temple just because it was smaller
mhm.
and more generic. The bathhouse is kind of so specific and a little bit more random. But and part of me chose this because I just really want to see some like ancient Roman Lego sets. Like, ah, give me them all. Give me a whole wave. Give me a Greek wave. Give me a ancient Roman or an ancient Greek wave, and that would be awesome. But I chose this not necessarily about the set. I think this would be one that Lego would maybe update a little bit. We've talked about how like they don't always just take the set as it is. They might make it a little bit more playable, because this is it's just kind of a box of a temple, right? They could add a little bit here to kind of tell more of a story. I would think that they'd do, maybe build up a little bit more around it, make it less squared. But this one, was for me. This is just
Yeah.
the one I want to see. I don't have a good rationale other than I just think Roman would be cool, and for me that's enough. So we had three to pick. I chose one for me here because I just love this historical time period, and I
Yeah.
think there's so much that they could do here. Similar to how we got the Viking village, I think that this could be another,
Hmm.
Roman,
Hmm. Like
Roman
warrior.
temple type. Yeah, and they could have a little blacksmith built to the side. They could do something with it, to make it like really cool, I think.
So allow me to pile on, which is
The
I
bricks.
have kind of a the first point here is I think this actually corners the male demographic. I wrote in parentheses, if you know, you know, in my notes. I don't know if you're aware of the TikTok trend about 2 years ago where
I'm not
they,
on TikTok, bro.
well, neither am I, but my Mrs. West is, and so I get the
I was
fair
about to
share of
say I
it.
get a lot of TikToks sent from you, dude.
Those are Instagrams. That's different.
Okay.
Apparently, uh, but I guess there was kind of a joke made that men, by and large, think about the Roman Empire at least once a week. And I actually don't
Oh,
think
I think I
I
heard of that.
fall under
Yeah.
that category, but and so then everyone said like, well, what is your version of the Roman Empire? And so then like a lot of women were speaking up and talking about like what's the one thing that like you just like randomly pops in your head once a week, right? So I thought that was pretty funny. And so I think this ancient Roman temple is basically Lego, or it gives Lego an opportunity to lean into that a little bit, right? I actually have 2 points here, and we've talked about it with our sets covering Lego Western and our Lego Ninja
Hmm.
sets, right? I think this one is not specific enough to cause a controversy in that they don't say what type of temple it is, right? Like who the deity is. They don't get into that. Because, like, if you're like, well, this is Neptune, and someone's like, well, Neptune actually had this problematic thing about his backstory or something
Sounds like
like
this
that,
is
right?
Uranus.
Or like, I think, what is it? Ares is the god of war. I don't remember if
Hmm.
that is I think that's the Greek version. I forget what the Roman version
There's
of it
some
is.
cross. I think some of them are very similar, right?
Right. I think some of them are literally the exact same. They just
Right.
changed the name. But like Neptune and Poseidon are the same. They've just changed the name.
Mars.
Mars, yeah. So, like obviously Lego wouldn't want to lean into something like that, right? So this is a nondescript temple. It's So I don't think you're going to get any problems there. But I also think it's like specific enough to be respectful to like ancient Roman culture and like kind of the good things that came out of the Roman Empire for the
Yeah.
human society, right? Because there was a lot of really cool things the Romans did.
Caesar salad.
Yep, exactly.
That's actually from Mexico.
Little Caesars
Yeah.
pizza.
Little Caesars, you know? Yeah. Great, dude. So good you get back pain.
I actually thought this was really colorful, which I thought was really cool, right? I think traditionally we think of Roman stuff as like all white and alabaster, but I think it actually probably was a little bit more colorful. I think that was done intentionally, and I think that's kind of a great thing. And then I always love to add, there's no IP here, right? So
Hmm.
an easy one for Lego to lean into.
So that's where I think, you mentioned like kind of play it safe and not really go down the whole like which deity are we worshiping here. That's where I think they could have some fun with this and be like, oh, it is the Temple of Mars, and they could add like a Mars mech. If they like, I'm not saying I'd like to see that. I'd like to see it more grounded in reality, but I could
Mhm.
see Lego kind of go down like a, they got like a buildable Mars god and go like it's like, guys, this is this is so obviously fantasy that it's fantasy.
Oh,
Like go
like a
full mytho,
retro
go
futurism of like
yeah,
the
go like
Roman
full
Empire.
mythology on it,
Yeah.
like Age of Mythology style, if for the fans of Age out there. But yeah, I love it. I'm glad you like it because it's a cool set.
It is. It is.
And I think Lego is probably my Rome, except for I think about that like every day. So
At least once a week for sure,
what
if not
is
more.
your next one here, West? Pitch
All
me.
right, so this one we kind of already touched on it a little bit earlier today. My next pick is the Grand Central Station, and here's my pitch for this one. It's a building.
Hmm.
It's a train station. We know Lego has not done train stations in the modular line, but they've drawn a clear distinction that the Icons series and Lego Ideas series, while maybe you could argue with some minimal modification, Lego Ideas sets are modular compatible. They are not meant to be modulars. And that is the perfect location for something like a Grand Central Station. Because as you see in the back of the set, the train track actually runs across the back. Definitely wouldn't be compatible in a Lego modular as kind of an initial, you dropped that into the Lego modular or Lego City. Could it be made compatible? Absolutely. I think the Botanical Garden set has set a precedence for these large buildings outside of the modular line. And it's very niche, like a Botanical Garden set is too. What I like about this one is it's not specific to like a single building. Wow. So it's not like the Union Station in Washington D.C., for example, or like
The Union Station in every other city in the
well, in the
United
United States,
States.
right? Or I was gonna say like King's Cross or something like that, right? Like it's just sort of a generic train station. But what's really cool about it is it's specific enough that you see it and you kind of know exactly what you're looking at in a really unique way. The interior is stunning, really well designed, and I think actually uses the space really, really well from like a space saving perspective. And I really like the kind of covering over the platform out the back that uses clear panel pieces and some really great like little one by one pyramid pieces for what looks like architectural iron molding on the sides of it. It just really looks really cool. It has an old world feel to it. I think it would fit really well in the Lego modular lineup and city without Lego kind of having to do that for the modular lineup itself, which I think would be really difficult to do. Um, Clearly, it's something they kind of agree with too, right? Because we talked about the Lego City set already.
Hmm.
Um, Definitely no IP here. And I think it's what the people want. People have been clamoring for a train station for a long, long time. I think Lego would be printing some money here if they leaned into this one. So,
What's the
Grinch,
piece that they're
thoughts?
using on the top of the roof there?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to pull this up and look at it myself too.
I think what they're using is, do you know the like weapon accessory pack that comes with like the rocket launcher, not rocket launcher that you see in like some Marvel sets. They had it in probably some Ninjago sets that comes with like the blades and stuff. You know
Hmm.
what I'm talking about? Where it's
Yeah.
like, how is this okay? I think it's using that recolored in sand green.
Oh, the little grenades. Yeah.
Yeah, the little grenade. No, 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 no. Explosive impact blasters or whatever the heck they get away with calling them.
Yeah. There's
um,
another weird piece. If you look at the back, the railings on the actual train station platform have a
mm.
weird clip piece used. And
Oh, that's a really old school piece.
I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an old classic space piece. So it's got a anti-stud and then a little spiral and then two horizontal clips
Yeah.
on the sides. It kind of looks like Lego minifigure legs on a pogo stick almost.
Yeah.
But it
Yep.
was that old school kind of like tubing connector piece that they use. That's a real. So there are some pieces like that that I've noticed where it's like, I don't know if they're gonna bring that out of the archive. But I will say I think I agree. I think your assessment here is fair. I won't linger on it too long. The only thing I'll say or add is that I think that they would probably take this off Technic pin connectors so
Hmm.
that it's not modular compatible like they did with the botanical gardens. I think that's kind
Yeah.
of their way to skirt around it a little bit of like, oh no no no. So so they might put some dumpsters on the side so they're not going to have the Technic pins there
Right.
like it is a
Right.
modular. I think that they would kind of go away from that if they were to go this route.
Yeah.
Certainly something that has been asked for. I mean, if it wasn't Lego Ideas, it's been in Bricklink Designer program before too,
Hmm.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's
So
time.
it is, and I think the only question I have is it a little bit too late because we did just get a new train station revealed.
Well,
But
remember the Friends
yeah,
Botanical Garden, and then we
no,
get the
that certainly
IP.
hasn't stopped them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, next, I have got one that I wouldn't have thought I would have selected or knew that I wanted to see, and that is Old Man and the Sea. And relative, I think, to our last two selections, like the Roman one was put up in the end of 2023. This one was put up in September 2024, so it hadn't been on there for a full year. But it uses the kind of buildable book, stylistically similar to what they've done before, not the same identical technique, but it's the pages opening up. And then on the back of it, we've got this really nice kind of picturesque three-toned sunset with your yellow, your orange, your red, and then it's just got the sea, you know, gushing out of the pages with the old man and the boat. It's got the marlin on the line and just a really perfect, really good, at the very least, marlin build here. And there's just so much color, right? Lego talks a
Hmm.
lot about using color and strategically and important. And from the sunset background to the boat to the ocean, to the marlin. I mean, you got these blues contrasted by the really warm reds, and I just this would just be a really nice display piece. And I've already got the spot on my shelf for it when they come out with it. Um, but no, another one where it's like, is this an IP? It was written by Hemingway. Hemingway was alive in the early 1900s to mid 1900s, right? Um, I don't know if that's public domain anymore, but it is one I counted as IP. But I don't think it would be difficult for them to acquire it. I, I think when they try to do some of these IPs, they always kind of trick me because they either go so wacky with the IP or they go
Yeah.
like so like Luxor Pixar lamp, like like so close to home or they go so far away from home. They tend to kind of do that, right? So that's why this one kind of gravitated towards me. I don't really have a good reason other than I just think it's a really interesting build, ton of interesting techniques. I love the action I'm trying to think of how like Lego Masters, how the Brick Masters judge a set here, and this has got everything. It's got the color, the literal story, and the figurative story, right? It's got the action. And there's just a lot here, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful set, and I think the thing that stands out to me is the similarity to the Jaws set. I don't think that's a bad thing, right? Where like the Marlin is able to be displayed on the
Hmm.
side, and then yeah, I mean you've got the sun using some plant pieces to kind of emulate sun rays, and then some really great use of color variation to kind of show the setting sun over either depending on what you would call that, right? The Florida waters or the Cuban waters off the out on the boat, and some really great use of color um, and shading here with different variations of blues and reds and oranges to great effect. I really like the clouds done in pink
Hmm.
um, right behind the boat in
Just
the image.
transitions from the sea, right? And then just kind of
Hmm.
sets up the sunset.
And anyone who's been out on the water in that area, on the Gulf, really kind of, I think, will see this and go like, I feel like I'm there, right? And I think it's a really fun topic. I think Ernest Hemingway, I don't know, certainly a controversial figure if you read into his biography and
Dude, I took a
background.
whole class in college on him.
So I think we've got controversy covered there. I'm curious kind of what Lego's thought would be on his works, because certainly, right, if you separate the author from the material or the artist from the art, right, the art that he's created has been celebrated time and time again as some of the best writing in American literature. And so I think it would be a really fun set. I'm afraid it's almost too much of a deep cut to some extent, but
Hmm.
this would be Lego getting like a little bit more just like thoughtful and adult oriented, right? In like a
I'm seeing
way
this as
that's
an 18 plus, I'm
yeah,
seeing the black box, right? I'm seeing, the old man in the sea, and it's got 1,000 pieces and it's $100.
yeah. I think that would be really fun. So I think it's a great pick, Grinch.
I
I
love the
think it's a fun
use
one.
of the blimp piece for like the sail with
Hmm.
wind, caught in the wind, right?
Yeah.
And Ernest Hemingway is a great author as well. Interesting person, that's all I'll say. Go check it out. Go check out his cats. But
Yeah.
there's something like almost like childistic about this too, because it's like that's not the right word. I don't know what word I'm looking for here, but it's got like the sun in the top left corner, and it uses little flower pieces. And I just remember as a kid, anytime you
Like
drew a
whimsical.
picture with, yeah, whimsical. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, it's I like it.
Yeah. It's fun. It's a good one.
Why don't you? One last thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's got a small printed book on it of the old man in the sea. Uses some of the little snakehead rods as like little, greebling accents, and it uses one of the old, like 2017 superhero super jumpers. If you don't know what those are, they were these little clear pieces that were like C-shaped and flat, and you would, press on the top part of the C. You would put your minifigure and then you press on the top part of the C, which was right below the legs, and you depress it and then let it go, and it would like jump the minifigure up in the air. And they were notorious for one reason, and that's because they were designed poorly, and if you used it, it would break the minifigure's legs. It would crack them. They actually used that as a stand for the book, recolored. I don't think Lego would come out. I think that would be a piece that they would change, but I just wanted, just something I noticed I wanted to
Yeah.
call out.
So a deep cut in the nice part usage category, huh?
The FBI is going to come crashing in this builder's house for using that illegal technique, because I think that piece is like super banned.
Yeah.
Or if there was a banned piece list, it would be on it.
Oh, Grinch, maybe we need to lean
I'm
in
already
on a
there. I'm already there. I'll write
banned
it down,
Lego
brother.
piece episode. Okay, let's wrap this one up for the last pick on my end. I actually have the world of Studio Ghibli.
He did it.
I did. I did.
Somebody had to.
Yeah, you know what? That's true. And here's my thought process on it. First off, it's a really fun set. There's lots going on in it. There's a ton of vignettes from the many and various movies that studio has produced and developed and led. Um, and it really kind of captures it all. I also think this is a one and done set for Lego, and Lego Ideas loves one and done sets.
Mhm.
Right? I don't think we're going to get another Twilight set. I think we're going to call that good, right?
Oh,
We're
what do you
probably
mean,
not
dude?
getting
I
another
have so many
Jaws.
Twilight set ideas.
Fair enough. The baseball diamond.
Yeah.
Um,
We're
we're not getting another Jaws set, right? I think we're probably not getting like another Voltron set. Like Lego Ideas is full of one and dones, and if there is a one and done version of Studio Ghibli, I think it's this. But it does include kind of everything that Lego loves, or I think a lot of the designers love. And I think this again is one of those idea sets where you're just printing money here for AFOLs. There's just too much to not love about it, and it's done so in a very thoughtful and respectful manner to like all of the Studio Ghibli work, and I think really highlights the impact of what they've produced. So I think it's really great, especially too that we're more or less at the end of Miyazaki's reign. He's getting really old. The Boy and the Heron, I believe that was the title of the last movie that they produced and released. I think was supposed to be his last movie. So I think this is the perfect time. This is like the career award here for in Lego form. So yeah, I think this is like a lifetime achievement award, basically, right? So I think this is it.
To me, this feels like, and we can say this now, a parking lot set
Yeah, yeah. Oh
that
yeah, great
doesn't get
point.
made. But I do feel like this would be one where they're like, hey, Studio Ghibli peeps, like, come on, please. Like, we've come to you 17 times. Like,
Yeah,
we put this in the parking lot and look at all the social media, trends that you've got, and like, please, please. But yeah, no, I agree with your take of like, this is kind of a compilation, at least, right? It's not just one thing. Um, and if they're not gonna come out with their own wave of it, like Avatar, the Blue People, then I feel like that's like a derogatory way to say that. I don't know what else other way to say that though. Uh,
maybe
the Pandorans,
yeah, the Navi, right?
the Navi. Um, because there was an idea set that was like that, like the world of Pandora,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like how this is the world of Studio Ghibli. But Lego obviously came out with a full wave of Avatar, the Navi. Um, so, so I do agree with yeah, this could be it. So I like the pick. All right, for me, and I guess I kind of like hit a trend here with this one and the last one. I went with E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And I say I hit a trend because they're both like display pieces, right? I feel like we've seen ideas more and more start to gear towards that like 18 plus range with stuff like, the typewriter, the globe, ship in the bottle, Hocus Pocus, right? It tends to be, they do a lot of these nostalgia contests. With
Mm-hmm.
this one, it was done similar. The Van Gogh set, right? It's similar design on like here's the forefront of the picture, here's a built-up background, right? You got the foreground, you got a little bit of a middle ground like the clouds and the Old Man and the Sea set we just talked about. In this case, it uses what looks like to be a very similar, if not the same dimensions of the um, diorama sets. And then you've got ET, and I forget the kid's name. They got their little camp out in the foreground, and then they've got some nice pine tree built kind of in the middle ground, and then the background is a built-up night sky with some stars, a giant moon, and then the classic, Amblin Entertainment sign, right? The classic scene from the movie of the bike and ET flying over, through the moon. And for me, it was interesting because there was another ET set. There's like a buildable ET
Yeah.
set in this wave. I think that they would maybe go more of this direction, capturing the movie more so than the character.
Hmm.
We have seen an ET minifigure before.
That was in Dimensions, right?
It was in Dimensions,
That's what
correct.
I thought.
So it's not, it's not necessarily not like Studio Ghibli where it's like we know it's, a big question mark on the IP, on the license. This is
Right.
certainly
Lego's done it
something they've
before.
been able to get before. We've seen this where they've, kind of done these kind of crosses between like, hey, we like officially we've talked about this IP and done this IP, but we haven't like officially done a set. Ghostbusters, um, Back to the Future,
Hmm.
right? Um, they've done it with Beetlejuice. They haven't got that set yet. They did it with Goonies, and now we are getting a Goonies set. So this kind of feels like it could be similar in that case. And plus, I really like the moon. I think that
Hmm.
looks really cool. And I think it'd be really cool to put a light brick in the little fire there, and then
Oh
also have
yeah.
glow in the dark pieces for the moon. I think that would be, where in the picture, the left side of the moon they're using some like sand blues, and the right side of the moon they're using some of the aquas. As you're looking at it, I should clarify. They're using some of the aquas, and as yours, I think some of those aquas could be some glow in the dark pieces, and I think you get
Yeah.
a nice little glow from it.
Yeah. I think this is a really pretty set. I would concur with your take of the two. I think I prefer this one. Not only because of I just kind of ET as a minifigure kind of works, right? I think that's sort of where ET is really fun. I also really like the moon, and I picked in the last review stage one of my favorite sets was the moon lunar map that they had,
Mm.
and so I see this and I'm getting those vibes from this moon that they've put out here, and I just the way it's captured I think is just it's not only is it stunning, it looks so good. But the forest too, I have like the little spacecraft in the back hidden amongst the trees. There's some other Easter eggs. There's the flowers on the other side. And then you have the scene in the middle. It just,
I said campfire, by the way. It's their communication device. He's phoning home.
yeah,
Just somebody's malding right now. I wanted to clarify.
I think it's a really fun set. This is one where I would love to see like a Light My Bricks take on this set. Because like
Mm.
you said, I think if you had just like a little bit of light from the background or something like that, that would look really, really cool. Just a fun set, Grinch. I think this is a great choice. And I this is one of those ones where I'm like, man, I really wish they'd do it. So and I love the tree builds, right? Like that fern piece keeps coming back in
Mm.
really great
Great
ways.
piece.
And the way that like this isn't a new design. It looks so good. So
It's certainly the most dense way that we see. Typically you see those trees as like one-offs. This has got them all. I mean, it's got like 15 of these things compiled into a really
yeah.
small area.
And the way
I
this
will say,
spacecraft's hidden, I think, adds to
mhm,
that like layer of density and creates a sense of depth in this
yeah,
Lego set. So,
yeah, and discoverability, right? It kind of
mhm.
your eye is attracted to the middle of it, right? And then you see the big moon, the silhouette, and you start to look at the trees, and you're like, wait, that's not a tree. What is
I
that? And
think
it
in
just
the
helps
movie,
draw you
isn't
in.
the spaceship silhouetted amongst the trees too? I think that is kind of.
Oh, dude, it's been like so. I think I
I
need to
know it's
rewatch
been
that.
years since I've seen ET. So
Yeah, I got a plane ride to get on in like 2 days, so maybe I should watch it.
do it.
The one thing I will say is I do feel like the piece count's a little high for what you have here.
Yeah.
There's 2,200 pieces in the fan design.
Oof.
I'd like to see that because, like, if I'm going off of 10 cents price per part, that feels a little steep for this, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah.
And at this point, I don't think we're gonna get like a $120 set with 2,200 pieces.
Not anymore. Lego Ideas used to have a really great price per part
Yeah,
ratio. They've seemed to have not. They're not doing that anymore.
yeah, for sure.
It's pretty on par.
All right, West. So now, folks, we are in the witching hour, if you would. We are in the final countdown of our show today. This is our final pick. This will be the one that we are putting our literal money on becoming a Lego set. And by putting our money on it, we mean if Wes gets it right, I will buy him the sets. I owe him the gems, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's another one I might owe you as well.
Yeah, so I would have gotten two sets out of the last review stage announcement, but I think because it was the Otter and I forget the second one. It was Snoopy. Snoopy.
Mm. Oh yeah, Snoopy. I owe you Snoopy as well. The
Yeah,
otter wasn't. The whale was picked, right?
I picked the
You picked
whale,
the whale, and
and
it was the otter.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
I was kind of
you wanted to be like, oh, there's three animals. I'll get the animals, and I said absolutely not because you stole the whale from me, and I was mad about it.
you were you were fairly incensed, but that's fair. All is fair, and in Lego Ideas review stage,
It's war.
gambling, right? So,
Yeah,
Grinch, do you to make me go first?
I'm gonna make you go first.
Okay. This is purely
Oh my God, are you stealing mine? After you said you weren't gonna steal it.
no, I don't know.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm gonna go with the Grand Central Station. I know, I know. Is this a bet? Like is this a? Am I like literally wagering this? Right? Am I gambling here? Maybe, maybe not. Is this maybe
Just
a
your house and car.
sense of like self indulgence? Yes, but I do really truly feel strongly that I think this is time. It's time. It's time that we get something like that in Lego Ideas form. Um, yeah, I. It's tough, right? I feel like we do get a building now fairly often. The Italian Riviera should be releasing this summer, if we understand those dates correctly. Um, I think we're due for another big building, and I think this one's it. So
I think I misunderstood the assignment because I picked a fourth set.
I see. That's okay. I I actually I didn't just pick this one because it was of the three. I think this one's legitimately it, and those
So
were
you
my
double picked it,
reasons.
is what you're telling me.
I'm double picking it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Bold. Bold move. I'm looking at communication here, and it said we're gonna pick 6 + 2. So okay. For my pick, I wasn't as bold as you. I went with the working cuckoo clock.
Okay.
And all I'll say is a precedence has been set here.
Yeah.
We had the globe. We had the typewriter. We haven't seen one of these vintage type items in a while.
That's
I
fair.
also think this checks a box that's not only vintage, but of the art, right?
Yeah.
It's technically a really cool build, like the typewriter was, like the globe was. The globe, it was all about the rounding and the shaping. The
Yeah.
typewriter, it was like it actually works. You can sit here and type on it. I mean, you can't like it's not a real typewriter, but it tick
There's
tick
no
tick tick tick
ink.
tick 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 tick, right? With the working cuckoo clock, it works. It is a cuckoo clock that works. Since those other two sets have come out, though, we've gotten a new Lego sound brick. And I think that would be
Mm.
really cool to add to the set. It would also make all the Lego bean counters really happy because they could increase the crap out of the price to parts, similar to how the motorized lighthouse worked, right? And there's a lot of reasons I've sold myself on this, and I feel like this is my first real pitch of the evening.
Yeah.
But I could just imagine, cuckoo, cuckoo, right? The little birdie comes out of the top. They've got the sound brick in there. They got a mechanism for it. I think this is it.
Well, dang Grinch, because I think you're onto something there to some extent, and I say that because there's some really cool engineering that actually goes into things like grandfather clocks and cuckoo clocks. And so, this really kind of hits all of the
Mm-hmm.
elements, pun intended here, for Lego designers, with, the geared Technic elements that they'd be using to actually build the clock mechanism, but then also to get the, the cuckoo to actually do the thing there. So I think that's a really good pick, and I think you've got pretty good justification for it. So don't hate that pick at all. So
I'm sorry, what was that? My Lego cuckoo clock in the background just went off that you had got me for winning this. What did you say?
yeah, well, there you go. So nice pick, Grinch. I think that is I could very well owe you a cuckoo clock.
I don't know. I've never been right in any of these, so I would truly though be happy with any of our selections today, not just mine, but also yours. I think we have a really good group of sets here, and I'd be curious to know as well what the listeners hope to see. Obviously, I think we made a decision, like we explained. Our goal in this podcast isn't just to sit here and run through a list of 57 sets. We will post the full review stage details and blog post on our link tree for this
Yep.
episode. That way you can follow along, look at the set images, kind of come up with your own pitches here for what
Listen to
you'd
our
like, and
justification.
yeah, pitch us in the comments what you think will be the next Lego set.
Absolutely.
Wes, did you have any final thoughts before we moved on? I love these episodes.
These
This
are a
is
lot of
turning into
fun.
one of my favorite episodes.
I don't, other than I just, if you noticed, other than the Studio Ghibli set, I really stayed away from IP, and I think we've had a lot of IP sets, and I think Lego Ideas at its best is when we get away from that and we are able to do these one-off things that I think are really unique. And it's not to say that the IP sets have been great, right? Unless Lego decides to do like a studio line for like TV shows and stuff, I feel like that is kind of a dried up segment. I mean, certainly if people keep voting for stuff, they'll keep building them, but I don't know. Would I love to see like any of those TV shows that have been brought up as a set? Absolutely. Like that doesn't change that. I don't know. I just don't think the odds of them getting picked up, especially in 2025, is huge. So
yeah, I don't remember how well the Seinfeld one did either.
yeah.
So I wonder if that kind of left a bad taste in the mouth a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, they're always fun sets. Like they're great for building.
Chock full of Easter eggs, right?
Yeah.
References,
really
whatever
great
you
builds
need.
for kitchens and interiors. Like they're really great sets for that. So
No, I like what you said about the IPs too, because I think even mine, where I had at least 2 of the 4 were IPs, but still like kind of one-off IPs. I mean, ET is certainly a big IP, but I think Lego's kind of learned the lesson of like, if we're gonna do this, like Bluey, for example, like we're gonna do this. Decline. You know what I mean? Like, yes, we'll evaluate that IP if you submit it, but like we're gonna do this justice, right? We're gonna do this whole thing.
Right.
So I think the IPs that we did select were very specific, right? Purposeful in our selection. So.
And what other ET set, other than maybe a buildable ET, would they actually release, right?
Right.
And it's such a long, it's a movie that's been out for so long, and it's so nostalgic that like, what audience are you trying to capture, right? Like younger generations aren't necessarily watching ET unless their parents or grandparents are introducing them to it. So you're not going after the younger market. So I don't know. It's an interesting question. I'd be curious to hear what their marketing justification is for when they pick these sets.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to learn more about that.
Be a fly in the boardroom wall when they are making those decisions. So
I mean, it's practically like we were there today, with our pitch meeting.
Lego just hire us and then we'll know. That's a joke, by the way. I mean, certainly, you could float an offer, Lego, but like, we're not trolling here for job offers.
Yeah. Podcast episode number 53, until Lego gives us a job offer. Anyways, okay. Hey, Lego. that we're going to be like, I'm never doing this again. Lego never even communicated with me. All right. I think that's a good point to end, huh?
Moving on.
Moving on to some brick mail. West, why don't you take us away here?
Brick mail.
Our first brick mail comes from John FC66, who writes, one of my favorite episodes of the pod. Will admit, though, I'm more of a prequel fan than an OT fan. And John, I kind of got that vibe from you in some of your past comments.
What?
The only set I have from the original trilogy as of now is the Executor Superstar Destroyer, which I just got. I also definitely want to get the AT-AT driver helmet. Got to listen to your old episodes about the prequels. Definitely looking forward to the new season of Lego Masters. And John, yeah, absolutely. The prequel ones we did in episodes 1, 2, and 3 on their own kind of episode. But I'd love to hear kind of your take if you go back and listen to them of what you think the prequels are missing. Because I think, we've kind of teased it out this summer. I think we're going to get pretty close to, checking the boxes on a lot of prequel stuff that people have believed was missing. So, especially getting an ARC 170 this year, that was pretty dope. So, yeah. Grinch, any thoughts?
I was confused by what he meant by Star Wars Episode 3 was my favorite movie of all time. He's a prequel fan. I got it now. John, we're just trolling. Thanks for all the comments.
Took offense when I said I was not a huge fan of the Clone Wars.
John's my boy. I will say, John, you comment on every single one of our Spotify episodes, so you keep our Spotify comment feed rolling. So definitely,
we love it. We appreciate it.
that and appreciate your insights sincerely. So. Next up, we have Rob Walker. He writes, "Hey guys, thanks again for some very interesting podcast. I find myself leaning towards the data-dense information, such as LEGO 2024 financial results and too many LEGO sets, but I enjoyed the brotherly banter, whatever the topic. A few takeaways from recent episodes." And then I'm going to kind of abbreviate some of it. He goes into Bricked, fascinating information about a great app. He actually went to download it to find out that he already had it. Been using it, importing his collection, and he's becoming a regular user. He talks about the too many Lego sets, great data, loved the chart, definitely felt that big set push, and then the 2024 financial results. He said after the episode he went online to actually pull up the report, and he said he had a lot of fun with it. So I think we're really glad that we're kind of adding to your experience there. I think that's certainly part of the intent, right?
Yeah.
And then
a tip of the hat to you, Grinch, too, because I think you did a really great job of walking the listener through that data set. I don't have a formal business background in that capacity. And so I even felt, though, like afterwards, after looking at it, I was like, oh, I think I could read one of these now and interpret what it's saying. So I think that was a nice introduction to those annual reports in a way that I think is unique. So
finance is the language of business, my man.
It is.
It's all there.
Sometimes English too, but
well, yes, mostly globally too. But anyways, math. All right, Star Wars. One of my most memorable movie-going experiences was going to the theaters and seeing Star Wars Episode 4. Yes, I am that old. The magic of... He wrote that. I did not say that. The magic of visuals, the scrolling opening, the unequal John Williams theme are all fused in my brain. Such magic. I do say with some relief that I am not a Lego Star Wars collector. Out of all the sets, I only own 5. Jabba's Palace, Ewok Village, Mos Eisley Cantina, Death Star Trash Compactor Diorama, and the Yavin 4 Rebel Base. I am pretty sure my purchases were driven by the minifigures included in each set. All of them are unopened at this time, part of my growing backlog. Your review was great, although I would have preferred more of a breakdown by each movie. I can't wait to see the $1,000 set. So, yeah, fair feedback on the breaking each movie down a little bit more, definitely noted. And it's funny that you say, like, with some relief, I'm not a Star Wars fan, because that's how I feel about it too, because early on out of my dark ages, I was like, okay, I can either do Star Wars or I can do like all these other cool things with the same amount of money, and I chose all the other cool things. And especially looking back on that decision like 10 years later, where it's like, so much of Star Wars has just been repeated at this point, right? And the new stuff that does come out is kind of like it's either loved or hated, and so I'm chilling over here with my Western sets and my my
Yeah.
Avatar, the Na'vi people sets, and Marvel and all that. So
Although Grinch, Marvel on its current trajectory, we'll see.
yeah, I've been thinking about that more and more. But they do keep coming out with some like baller Lego sets though, like
They
the
do.
Milano this year. I mean, some of these Spider-Man sets are coming out with. But anyways, Rob goes on to say, I am currently building the Dungeons and Dragons Red Dragon Tail. Good fun so far. That was always one that piqued my interest. I think I ultimately kind of like the Zelda set was like I was like this close to putting it on my list, but I don't know. Maybe I'll regret it. But glad to hear you're enjoying that. He says, keep up the great work, Rob W.
Well, Rob, thank you for writing in as always. Both you and John are kind of longtime writers and longtime listeners of the pod, and we really appreciate it and love to feature your feedback and thoughts on these episodes as well. So we had, and Grinch mentioned this at the end of the original trilogy episode last week. We had talked about splitting it up. I think we felt like doing each one was just almost a little too much. Not necessarily in like effort on our end, but it's just a long slog of Star Wars, and we wanted to kind of specific May the 4th episode. I think what we said, there was 270 sets in the by our count in the original trilogy, around there, like just a ton of material to cover. So I know, as he mentioned, we're going to break down some of the we'll probably do all the sequels in one. I think that's maybe a fair.
I don't think there'll be much criticism on that.
Yeah. And then I think we'll start kind of dividing up some of the external, Clone Wars stuff and some of the other sets kind of in their own kind of niche little genres there. So anyways.
There will certainly be more Star Wars.
Yes, absolutely.
Certainly. And last shout out to Taco. Taco also comments on all of our YouTube. He had said congratulations on 50 episodes, stuff like that. So big shout out to you, Taco, because you've been around since the plain old Grinch YouTube days. So appreciate you, buddy. And that is a wrap of another episode of AFOLs Welcome. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you're listening to the show. If you would like to write the podcast, please email us at afolswelcome@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at AFOLs Welcome. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.